Hi folks, I'm Matt. How many of you guys have seen the video? Okay. Well, I'm going to show it to you again if you don't mind in a little while. But first I'm going to tell you the story of how I ended up making it. I grew up in Connecticut, so I'm from the East Coast originally. So I moved out at 19 to Los Angeles and started designing games there. And it took me a few years to realize that I really hated living in Los Angeles. I liked the job, I liked the work, but it was a lifestyle that, and this isn't entirely the city's fault, this is largely my fault too, but my life had become this rhythmic migration from bubble to bubble. You wake up in your apartment bubble, you get in your car bubble, you go to your work bubble, you get in your car, and then you go to whatever the outdoor shopping plaza bubble, back in your car bubble, back to your apartment bubble. There wasn't a lot of exposure to the outside world because you are in your car all the time, and it's really insulating. So I wasn't happy there, and I worked with some guys who were Australian, and they'd come up and gotten these jobs as programmers at the game company that I was working at the time, which was called Pandemic Studios, and they felt the same way I did about living there, and they wanted to go home, so they quit. These guys were actually legitimately useful to the company, and when they left, they were invited to open up a separate office of the company down in Australia. When I heard this was happening, I begged them to take me along, and the talent pool of game designers in Brisbane at the time wasn't very huge, so I was able to go down with them. In 2000, I moved to Brisbane, Australia. I was 23 at the time, and that was great. That was a really, really good decision for me, getting to live abroad, which living internationally in Australia isn't saying a lot. It's of all the countries I've been to since then, it's the most like America. It's not huge culture shock, but it's a fantastic place to live. And one of the things that happened living down there, aside from losing some weight, losing the milky pallor of my skin, and learning how to dive and things like that, and learning how to drink alcohol, which is something I hadn't gotten around to doing until then. Australians are great teachers at that. One of the things that happened to me was I learned about international travel. I learned that you can do what a lot of Australian kids my age were doing, which was when they finished school, they'd save up some money, or they'd get some money from their parents, and they'd say, "Bye, Mom, bye, Dad, see you in my mid-20s," and they'd disappear for a couple of years. So I had a lot of friends who were doing that, and I learned that was something you could do, and it really wasn't something that I knew about until then. So I worked in Australia for a couple of years, and what was happening at the time was we were pitching games. We'd finished a couple projects, and we were making original concepts. This was in the early days of the Xbox. Did any of you guys play games? I'm going to talk a little bit about the games industry here. It was the early days of the Xbox. It was a little unsteady in its first year or two. They didn't know what people wanted. They didn't know how to make a game system, and they wanted to make family games. They wanted to make games that party games that kids could play together with their parents and that sort of stuff. And so they hired us, and we said, "Yeah, sure. How about a game about little creatures that pop into balls and roll around smacking into each other?" And they said, "That sounds like a lot of fun." So we were working on that. A few months into making this game, they did some market research and discovered the only people who'd bought Xboxes were 22-year-old boys, and the only thing that they wanted to do was drive over hookers and beat up pimps and play a lot of Halo. So Halo was really the only game that was selling on the system. So they said, "Well, that was a terrible idea. We're canceling your game." Which they had every reason to do, but it was a tough blow for us because we were really passionate about making a goofy game for kids about furry creatures that pop into balls and smack into each other. So we were in a difficult situation where we were getting a lot of licensed content thrown at us. If you make games these days, it's really to a very large extent part of a very large marketing machine where they have these licenses, and all of them. They're Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men, bunch of them. And there's about 10 or so, 10 big ones that get shopped around, and most of the games you see coming out, Madden, Grand Theft Auto, are these licensed franchises. So we were going to get stuck doing those unless we came up with something original, but the caveat on that is that it had to be original, but really something that everybody was already going to be familiar with. And what everybody wanted at the time was Grand Theft Auto. That was the big hot game. And it was what everybody wanted to play. So sort of out of frustration, because we didn't want to be making those games, I said, here's an idea for a game. You play aliens who come down to Earth, and the idea is you just blow up everything and kill everybody. and we'll call it Destroy All Humans. And I wrote that as just sort of a one-paragraph summary for the game, and it got sent to the bosses, and they said, that sounds great. That's exactly what we want. So get on that. And so we were all putting together a concept pitch for this Destroy All Humans game. Spent a couple weeks doing it. It got sent around to the publishers, and the publisher said, yeah, that is exactly what we want. We want a game about killing everyone. And so it got greenlit, and it was moving forward. And I said, well, you know what, geez, I was kind of kidding. I don't actually want to do that because it takes a long time to make a game. It takes, these days, about 2.5 years. And you come out of it, and you've put a lot of your life into this thing. And I knew at that point that if you don't come out of a project proud of what you did and feeling like it was worth that time, don't do it. Don't get into it. So I didn't want to go through it again. I needed a break. So I took the money I had saved up in Australia, and I just took a globe and chartered a course to all the places that I'd always wanted to go to. So I ended up, this was in 2003, I left. I hit 17 countries in about 6 or 7 months. Now, here's the thing about the dance. The dance is something I've always been doing for as long as you can stand up. That dance that 2-year-old, 3-year-old kids do, and they're just like that. I never really stopped doing that. I never developed a better kind of dance. So it's just what I've always done, and I do it to annoy my coworkers when I'm ready to go to lunch. Just kind of hover over their desks and be like, "Come on, it's time to go to lunch," and eventually they get up and we go to lunch. So I was traveling by myself for the most part, but a couple months into it, I was in Vietnam with a friend and former coworker, and we were taking pictures in Hanoi. And he said, "Hey, you should do that stupid dance you used to do out here on the street, and I'll film it with your camera." And so I did that. And it turned out really funny. And I thought, well, this is a pretty good way to take a memento of every place I go. And a lot of people do it. You take a stuffed animal with you or a T-shirt with you, something on a big trip, and take a picture of yourself everywhere you go. Well, this was just a little spin on that. And when I finished the trip, I got home, and I wasn't done traveling. I hadn't gotten the travel bug out of me. So that was when I moved to Seattle, and I took another contract job writing for a game called Lemony Snicket. There was a movie with Jim Carrey a couple of years ago. I wrote the storyline for the game of that, and that was just a way to save up some more money and go to Africa for a couple more months. In 2004, I went to Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and the Seychelles, and I got to go diving with 25-foot whale sharks. I went into the mountains of Uganda and saw the mountain gorillas there, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and had another amazing time. And when I got back from that, it was, I know, almost exactly 2 years ago, because it was the election of 2004. And that was when I took all the clips from both of those trips and put them together into a video, put it up on my website, which, by the way, I'd started just before I left on that trip as a blog. It was blogs were big a couple years ago. Everybody had a blog. I was going on this trip, and I thought, well, this will be a good way to tell my friends and family where I am and show them pictures from my trip. And it wasn't really intended. The name "Where the Hell is Matt" is not some, it was not. I wasn't making a brand when I named the site that. It was literally to tell my friends and family where the hell I am. And so I put it up on my site, and I told a couple friends about it. One guy in particular found it on my site, and he thought it was hilarious. So he showed it to a couple of his friends. They put it on their blogs. It got on other blogs from there. This is now, we're in early 2005, before the founding of YouTube, about just short of 2 years ago. YouTube didn't exist yet. And the way that everybody saw videos online was these video aggregator sites, where it's just a site that collects stupid crap on the internet, and the communities of nerds laugh at it. There's Something Awful, Metafilter, Boing Boing. There's a lot of these sites, and it just started popping up on all these sites. And one day I woke up, and the video, my server was shutting down. It was getting 20,000 downloads a day, 30,000 a day, and I was just suddenly getting all this email from all over the world. I didn't think it would be amusing to people who weren't me or someone who I know, but it turned out that it was. And so it kept on going, where there'd be these spikes of interest all through that year. A couple of weeks would go by, and then all of a sudden, boom, they found it in South Korea, and then boom, they found it in Sweden, and I'd get another rush of emails. And then this spike happened in August that was bigger than all the others. I still don't know what triggered it, but in August of 2005, it got really, really big. And I started getting a lot of email, and then I started getting TV shows and stuff. Started emailing me, like Inside Edition, The Ellen Show, Good Morning America. Suddenly, everybody wanted to, show it. And in amongst that, I was actually on a road trip across the U.S. at the time that was happening. So I'd just get to a motel at night and check email, and there'd be a couple hundred emails. And Walter Cronkite just sent me an email. He really likes the video. Okay. And one of the emails in there was from a company called Cadbury Adams that make like half the things you see in a grocery store. They make, among many other things, Dentine and Trident. I think they make Dr. Pepper, a bunch of different soda, a whole lot of products. And they had a new kind of chewing gum they were bringing out called Stride. And they said, yeah, we're bringing this gum out in June of next year, and would you be interested in making another video of you dancing for us that we could use to promote the gum? And I said, well, I'm broke. I don't really have much money to do a trip like that. Would you guys pay for it? And they were like, yeah, we'll pay for it. And I said, well, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah, I'd really like to do that. So we spent a couple months working out the details. They gave me a budget to work with, but they said to me, I went out there and I visited them at the office, and they said, we like what you're doing. We want to help you. We don't want to mess with you. I went in very wary about working with a corporate sponsor, but they stayed totally true to that the whole way. They didn't want to make a commercial for their gum out of it. They've got commercials. You can see them on TV all the time. But they'd seen what was going on the internet, and by that time YouTube had taken off and was becoming a big deal, and all these other sites were becoming a big deal. And a lot of companies, they want to be a part of that. But it's very, very difficult to, because as soon as the company gets in there and starts making things, we as viewers, a switch flicks in your head, and you're watching an ad, and you interpret it differently. So they just said, we want to help you make it, but we're not making it. So in any case, we put an agreement together. I went out to the map store in Seattle, and I got the biggest political National Geographic map of the world that I could find, put it up on my bedroom wall, and got some red erasable markers and did the sort of Indiana Jones thing where you draw those lines from here to there. And I just started drawing lines to all the places all over the world that I've always wanted to go that I didn't think I'd really ever have an opportunity to go to. And that was, some of those were Easter Island, Galapagos Islands, Antarctica, all over Africa, the Middle East. And I just put this huge plan together that I think I had 70-some countries I was going to hit. And I quickly realized that in about 180 days that I had, that wasn't going to be possible. So I pared it down to a more realistic 39 countries. That meant that I was going to be spending about 4 or 5 days in each country. And I figured that was the minimum amount of time I could spend to have some experiences and get to see the country a little bit. I kind of thought of it as the Denny's buffet trip around the world, where you just take a little bit of everything out there and find out what you like, and then you go back for seconds later. So I left in December to Antarctica, and then after a 10, 12-day trip down there, came back for Christmas and New Year's. January 4th of this year, I left for the big trip, the other 6 continents. Got back in June and put the video together. Now, I've been talking for a really long time. Some of you guys haven't seen the video and don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So I'm going to show you the second video. Show you the second video, and then I'll keep talking some more when it's done. We good sound? Turn the lights down a little. So I put that up in June. It's been downloaded about 5 million times online since then, mostly on YouTube, Google Video, my site, about a dozen other places that people just kind of put it up, which is cool. I'm made the video, had my agreement, that's all done. The internet is the internet. I don't have any misconceptions about that, so it goes all over the place, and that's great. And it's been really fun watching the response. One of the things that happened early on that in the context of this isn't really going to come up, but a lot of people thought it was fake. A lot of people, I think probably mostly younger kids, would look at that thing and go, "Oh, that's some guerrilla marketing exercise." And they'd say things like, "Oh, it's different people. You can tell because he's a fat guy there and he's a skinny guy there. He's got long hair there, short hair there," which is something that happens. I lose a lot of weight when I travel because it's just you're moving around a lot and you're outdoors a lot. And then I gain it all back when I come home. And they'd say things like, actually, there were some people who were arguing that I didn't exist, which is really disconcerting. But you know, it sort of fueled the fire in some ways, and I really dig that people watch that and they go, no, that's not possible. You can't do that. Nobody can go to all those places, because what happens is a few of those people, you know, they go, well, where the hell is Matt.com? And they go and they look at the blog and they find out, oh, this is real. This thing that I thought was impossible is actually real. So that's it. That's the second video. There's lots more to talk about. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
What was your line when you're on the rock in Norway?
Yeah, the rock in Norway. That's one that's sure to come up. It's called the Sharad Bolton. That's the name of the rock itself. So the Sharad Bolton is in the fjords of Norway. In the last ice age, this boulder, it just dropped into this chasm. It got lodged there. And it's been there for about 10,000 years. There's nothing man-made holding it in place there. It's just stuck. And you can go out there, and you can actually stand on it. Somebody emailed me a picture of this thing, and it was a person standing on this rock, and I thought, that's incredible. I've got to get out there and do a dancing clip on the rock. That is so cool. So I was on the trip at the time. I rerouted things. I canceled some countries and got up to Norway. Met up with the guy who'd sent me the email, and he drove me up from the town of Stavanger to where this place is, and we hiked for a couple hours. It's him. The one farther away is Joachim, and he took me up to the Sharad Bolton. And it wasn't until I got up there that I thought, holy crap, actually I have to stand on this thing. I just looked at the pictures and thought, that's cool. I didn't think I'm actually going to have to get out there and dance. So that's the hike up there, and then that's the fjords. This is it right there. And this rock is 3,000 feet up. It's a 3,000-foot drop into the water. And it's really cold, and it was snowing. And what happens in a chasm like this is it sort of channels wind in there. So standing right here, you kind of got wind going at you. And it looks a little bit worse than it is. It kind of looks like I'd have to jump down there. But actually, behind that rock is a path. Right here, this is around the backside, so you kind of have to sidle along the edge of this rock, this narrow bit, and then that's it right there. That's the Sharad Bolton. So I'll show you the raw video clip that we took that I ended up editing into the video. This is it here.
Okay, filming.
Yeah, thumbs up, when you're going.
Filming.
There's no music playing. I didn't bring anything out there. You can tell I'm not really lifting my feet up too high. It's a little bit of a reserved dance. And here we go. That's me screaming. That's it.
Okay, filming.
So that was the stupidest thing I've ever done. But it was just one of those things where you're in the moment, and it was the end of the trip. I'd already made most of the video, and I thought, well, if I die, I'll give the footage to Melissa, and maybe she can make the video and put it up there. And my friend Matt, also named Matt, not my clone, who I was traveling with there, he was standing there holding the camera, thinking, what am I going to do if this guy falls and dies? Because this is going to be the coolest video clip ever. I mean, but what do I do? Do I sell it? I mean, I could make some money off of this, but I don't want to, So he was standing there dealing with the moral dilemma while I was dealing with the courage dilemma over there. Unfortunately, in some ways, fortunately, in some ways, unfortunately, I didn't fall. It would have been pretty cool if I fell. It would have been a cool video. I will definitely concede to that. Okay, that was Rwanda. Yeah, that was fantastic. I don't know about you guys, but that's my favorite clip from the video, and a lot of people tell me that's their favorite clip. We're all in agreement on that one. Yeah, that was a really special thing for me. Rwanda was another one that was not on the itinerary for the trip. I knew a guy who was there. I wasn't sure if he was going to be there when I was traveling or not. He ended up, my friend George was there, and I was on my way. I was in Laos at the time, heading towards Botswana. And I ended up just kind of canceling a bunch of flights. It cost me a lot of money. I hung out in the airports. I slept in a bunch of airports waiting for the flights. I ended up going from Laos to Dubai to Nairobi, and then spent the night in Nairobi and flew to Kigali. And they were all flights that I'd buy at the airports as I was going along. I landed in Rwanda, and I only had about 2 days before I had to get going again. As it happened, I landed in Rwanda during Hope Week, which is the 12th anniversary of the genocide that happened in 1994. So they have a lot of things going on there. I ended up going to a commemoration ceremony at the site of the mass graves, where they have something like 50,000 bodies were dumped into these ditches and covered over with concrete. And it's a very recent tragedy that happened in their history. So it's within the lifetimes of most people there, not these kids, fortunately, but most people in Rwanda have the emotional scars from that experience, and especially during that week. I can't compare it to any other time because it's the only time I was there, but it just kind of hangs over everything. But one of the reasons that it was really important to me to go there was I know that all the images I'd seen out of Rwanda were of this horror and this tragedy, and one of the things that happens is we kind of, it separates us from those people. We think that their lives are constant misery and that this suffering defines them. And you don't ever see any kind of positive, joyful images coming out of places like that. But I'd been to Africa before, and I knew that that was not the reality. So I went to Rwanda, and George and I drove out into this town outside of the capital city, and I was there for about 10 or 20 minutes total. Just walked into this town. I started dancing. I don't speak Kinyarwanda. They didn't speak any English. I just walked out there and started dancing. And I'll show you the video clip. These are some pictures, but I'll show you the actual clip right here. I've edited the 3 clips I took. That's it. That's the moment that I started dancing. Within about a second, the kid in the red shirt, he's dancing. The kid in the green, he starts dancing. They're all dancing, and then the kids standing nearby, they see it and they start running in. They want to get in there too. And this is the second clip. Now the parents are kind of hovering around going, what the hell is this guy doing? But the kids had no problem with it. They got it immediately. They thought, the big tall white guy's dancing. Yeah, I want to do that too. And then, so that's the second one. And then the third one is the one that I ended up using the video. And this is pretty much all the kids in the village at this point. And you can see some of the adults standing around. They're circled all the way around. There were about 100 people staring at this. George and I were just going, this is great, but boy, we probably got to get out of here pretty soon. So we shot this one, and then what was really fun, and what I really recommend doing if any of you guys ever go to Africa, digital cameras are a wonder, because these kids have not really seen pictures of themselves before, not very often, and with a digital camera, you can go and you can take a picture like this, and then you can right away show it to them, and they're going crazy. It's so cool. They get to see themselves right away. And actually, when I went to Africa the previous time in 2004, I brought Canon makes a portable digital printer. You don't need to plug in or anything. You just charge the battery. And I went around a town like this one in Tanzania and spent the morning taking pictures of all these kids, close-up pictures of them. And then I came back to the hotel for lunch, and I printed out about 30 of these pictures. And then in the afternoon, I walked around with all these pictures in my hand, and I'd find the kids, so I took the pictures of, and I'd give them the pictures. First time I showed it to one of these kids, his head exploded, and he just took off, booked down the street. I was like, well, he's gone. He's done. And then 5 minutes later, every other kid in the town is marching down the street, and they're all circling around. They all want their pictures, and they were just going crazy. It was so cool. And what happened as a result of that was I got access into places. People kind of opened up to having me come in. I was invited into houses, and they'd bring out sort of the family elders. One family brought out their sort of grandmother came out, and she must have been in her 80s or 90s, and she had the earlobes that go down like this, and it was a really big deal. It wasn't something that would have happened had I not been able to give them those pictures, and I just got these incredible pictures out of that visit, which I ended up losing all of them last year when my laptop got stolen out of my car. So I don't have those pictures, but I did get to give the pictures out to the kids, and that was really, really cool.